the reason I'm giving the speech here today, as you probably know, is the best of all reasons, which is because of the football game that happened earlier today, the person who was going to come out wasn't able to because she had to help organize all the alumni that were getting organized in Sackville. My parents still live in Sackville, and my dad called me on Friday, and he said that people were scrambling around in the town of Sackville, selling tickets, trying to find additional bleachers. And this game is, one of the biggest things that's happened in Mount A in a long time. Who here saw the game on TV today? Yeah, it was outstanding. And I think it's almost certainly the first time, the only time that Sackville, New Brunswick has been on live television nationwide, right? Like there's no other circumstance. What was that?
They won the Hockey Canada from a contest, and then they had a sports event.
Okay, I don't know who you are. Just because your dad graduated with me in 1983. He's the right young lady. So we'll just leave her. Yeah, don't let the facts get in the way of my answers. I'm pretty sure this is the only time. Well, so when did that happen?
Craft Canada. It was while Jackson and I were in our last year at Mount A.
So it was like Craft Hockeyville.
Yeah, Hockeyville. Sackville is Hockeyville.
So what are you saying? Oh yeah. So today was the second time was our national television. And for those of you who saw it, one of the neatest things was for me. I was with a bunch of friends of mine. We play ball hockey at the UBC on Saturday morning. So afterwards, we stopped at where we have lunch after at the golf club, and so we asked them to flip the channel on. So to be sitting in Vancouver or Surrey, White Rock, wherever you happen to be, and watching a live camera shot that those of us who know Mount A know so well, just walking along where the Macaulay football field is, looking down with Truman on the left and that lower field on the right with Park Street down there, and to see that shot live on television. And you see my wife, okay, here's the thing. We already know the young woman over here is contradicting me. The almost as young woman here contradicts me all the time. And be kind to her, but she's a UBC grad from British Columbia. She doesn't understand the love that we have for Mount A. And I see we represent a lot of different classes. And I don't mean socioeconomically, I mean like graduate. And as I put down the program, I have, we all have our different Mount A stories, and our connection to Mount A is different. I mean, mine started with my parents meeting at Mount A and getting married there and moving back to Trinidad. And then when I was a year old, they decided that of all the places they might consider raising me, that they couldn't think of any better place than Sackville, New Brunswick. So I lived in Sackville from the time I was 11 months old, and it felt, even though I sort of thought about going to the universities, it felt like the perfect place for me to go was Mount A. And, again, I know that as I look around, your connections to Mount A will be a little bit different, the things that you liked and didn't like, because, it's an intense experience at university will be different things. I think, for me, a couple of the things so first of all, after all, it's been 30 years this year since I've been in Mount A. 4 years, I am that old, actually. I work with some people in Vancouver. I'm by far the oldest person on the program that I work in. So I have to explain things all the time. The other day I was saying to somebody that I was calling directory assistants, and then there were these blank looks around the table. And I had to explain the directory assistants. So I appreciate the fact that at my table and at some of these tables, I don't have to explain all the things that I do at work. But yes, I am that old. 30 years since I graduated from Mount A, but still I do feel a very strong connection to Mount A. And I know that, and I'm sure that many of you feel the same way, well obviously you do because you're here tonight, that a lot of who I am and what shaped me, and even on a week-to-week basis at work, there are a lot of things that are connected back to Mount A. In my case, I think of a couple of things. It's hard for us to explain to a lot of people out here what it's like to go to a school that when I was there had 1,500 people. Our kids went to a high school with more people in Vancouver than the university that I went to. And I know the numbers have kind of gone up and down over the years, but still 1,500 people. And when I was there between 79 and 83, and again, an experience most of you guys can appreciate, fine arts school. We had a great music school. We had people who were learning to be engineers, arts and sciences, of course, teachers who were spread out around the Maritimes and to an extent across Canada and even beyond, all in that little university. And for me, When I started at Mount A, I was a political science and history major until I discovered by about Thanksgiving the first year that I actually don't like history. Not something I'm interested in. I did okay in a course in high school, but really wasn't something that I wanted to study. Actually, your dad was a history professor, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Excellent. Good anecdote. History, I love history. But I walked into, in second year, a sociology class taught by a guy named Tom Goff, who some of you may know. And I discovered a course, I didn't even really know what sociology was before, and I just discovered a course that I loved. And when I went to Mount A, the sociology department had 2 professors, and the other one was Barclay Fleming. And it was the only time in 7 years of university, not all at Mount A, that I loved a course and a series of courses. And I was able to not only find something which really excited me, but I was very interested in radio at the time. I worked at CKDH in Amherst and CKCW in Moncton while I was going to Mount A. And I was able to craft some of the papers I did, including my honors thesis in 4th year, to study broadcasting and journalism ethics. And that's one of the great things about Mount A, that you can be in this little university and find that program that you like. And also, as again we all know, but just something to reflect upon, and that's the thing I like about this tonight, is that I don't get a chance to think about Mount A directly very much. I mean, it has that kind of subtle influence on me, but at work, not a lot of people asking me about Sackville. So another thing I was thinking about is the activities outside of the classroom, and how you can get involved in so many things. Like, where else can you go? And there must be some other places, but not many, where you can dabble in a school newspaper, or you can try your hand at drama, and you can get involved in intramural activities. There's just so many things you can do. And then every once in a while there's one that's really critical to your development. And for me, it was debating. You know, I was involved in debating. I enjoyed the process of it, the competition of it. It was terrific for us from Mount A. There was a bunch of kids, most of us from the Maritimes, who went to these debating tournaments in places like RMC in Kingston, the University of Ottawa, McGill, against these big universities in Canada and the United States. And it was with a great deal of pride that our little university in Sackville, New Brunswick, would end up doing very well against these others. But the other thing is, I was able to use debating to sort of hone a lot of the skills that I use every day on the air. In fact, when my dad called on Friday to talk about the football game, you know, he'd been watching the coverage of the last week that I do on CBC News Network and asking me about, well, where did you think about, you know, what questions to ask and how to deal with some of the live, unscripted things we were doing on TV. And I really do think there's a direct line from standing up in a classroom in Sackville and debating against other people extemporaneously. There's a direct line between the skills that I honed there and what I ended up doing and what I end up doing on a day-to-day basis. And I'll bet you for every single one of you, except the spouses who've been dragged here against your will, for every one of you, there are things that you can think back to in your 3 or 4, what was it, 6 years that you learned and that were really interesting. So I think it's so appropriate that on a day when Mount Allison is being thought about right across the country, where the football team for this small school went up against Laval, this powerhouse, which has won the most national championships. I saw, some of you did as well, on TV. Laval has won the most national championships of any university in Canada, I believe I saw, in football, and they're all since something like 1999, right? So this powerhouse university from Quebec, and you know, our Mounties did really, really well. And I missed the first part of the game. I didn't realize they went down 21-0, sort of 5 minutes in, somebody was telling me. And yet they managed to kind of just stay competitive in that game. And I watched mainly the 4th quarter, and they look good. And if you happen to watch the next game, University of Calgary against Western, the #1 ranked university team in the country, and Western lost by a huge margin, something like 40-3. And they looked demoralized in the 4th quarter, and you know, our team didn't. So I wish I had the smart Mounties gear that you guys are wearing, because I would be wearing it. But sadly, my wife won't let me have any. So let me.
You still have your icky leather jacket.
I do, yeah. It has shrunk quite a bit.
Yeah, it's
It fit perfectly, it doesn't fit anymore. It's crazy, very low quality leather jacket. I don't know how many of you have managed to get back to Sackville lately. I'm kind of lucky because My parents are there. I go once or twice a year. I was there just about 2 months ago, and Truman has become now the student center, Truman House, and the gym is just terrific. Like when I went to Mount A, the gym was this, like not the athletic center, but where kind of people would go and exercise. It was this sad little room back in the 80s. Well, now they have this beautiful gym, as you guys know, with that looks out actually onto the football field. And a great bookstore in there. It's just, you know, the university looks terrific. You probably know a little bit about the controversy about what's happened to the old student center, and maybe if I were to talk more about it, there'd be this ugly rift in the room between those who like the idea and those who don't, but like Rob Ford, let's not go there. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like when it's done. Stedman's, for those of you of a certain generation, is long gone, replaced by Jean Coutu, a drugstore, which is kind of like a department store, yeah. Mel's is under new ownership. Crazy, like how dare they do that? Family, which owned it basically all my life growing up, and now it's owned by different people. Mel's is still there, but it just feels like Borden's, I think, is gone. You know, and now and technically there is still one traffic light downtown.
Honey, can you walk us through the entire town?
I know. Like, the first time Nancy went to Sackville, she spent the longest 2 days in her life in Sackville. Now again, don't hate her, because you know she doesn't share our love and fondness for that little town. But if you're from the big city of Chilliwack, British Columbia, you can see where Sackville would just not seem, you know, that sophisticated. I get that. I understand. I guess I'll finish by mentioning a couple of things. One is a shameless commercial plug. I make no money from this. It's not something, but I just want to do this, and on this you'll agree. If you haven't seen it lately in Sackville, there is a terrific art gallery called the Fog Forest Gallery, and it's on Bridge Street. Who here has been to the Fog Forest Gallery? It's absolutely beautiful. They have a great website, so Fog Forest Gallery, and it celebrates certainly Canadian artists and Atlantic Canadian artists, but in particular artists that have connections to Mount Allison. And the art is beautiful, and it has all kinds of different styles. One of the things that Nancy and I have done over the years is bought a lot of stuff from the proprietor, whose name is Janet Robertson, right?
Yeah.
Her last name's different, I guess, now. You know, people's last names change over 30 years. It's crazy. But anyway, Janet Crawford, that's what her name is. But I really strongly recommend that you go to the Fog Forest Gallery. They can send you art, and I have some beautiful art done by artists with Mount A connections of the Swan Pond and of the wildlife park and that sort of thing, right? So it's pretty. The United Church, for example, which is about to be torn down, and what used to be the town hall, that little brick building just at the corner of the one traffic light, is now the United Church. That's kind of lame to see them. So anyway, yeah. Think about Mount A. You know, go to the Tribune online. That's a nice way. The Tribune is still printing and still an interesting thing to see. And you know, as somebody whose parents, as I say, met at Mount A, and we have 2 sons, and as you may have seen in the program, as I expressed in the program, much to my deep disappointment, my older son's at UBC. But my younger son's in grade 12, and you know, he's looking at an array of choices of where he might go next year. And you know, if you're a parent, that what you want for your kids more than anything is for them to be happy and fulfilled. But what could be more fulfilling and generate more happiness? Really, not to put any pressure on him, he's not here. What could be more fulfilling than to be a 3rd generation Allisonian? So a dad can still hope. So you know what? It's time for peach cobbler.